When I looked at his body language there, and also to his statements, as I shared with you off screen, is that I actually ran every statement that he made, even through Deceptio AI.
Everyone focused on what his best friend Cajun Navy was trying to say, but almost nobody noticed the one answer that may have revealed far more than he intended. Once you hear in context, you'll understand why people are now watching that interview very differently. The interview everyone was talking about. The last section left us with one important question. What really happened to Nolan Wells after the boat left Horn Island?
Everybody is talking about Nolan Wells, the kid who tragically died over 4th of July weekend. And there are multiple investigations going now on exactly what happened. There is suspicion by some that maybe his friends were involved.
Now, we come to the interview that made people stop, listen, and ask even more questions. It was not just another conversation. For many viewers, it felt like a door opening into the final hours of a young man whose family is still waiting for clear answers. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old student-athlete from Mississippi. On July 4th, 2026, he traveled with friends by boat to Horn Island for a holiday gathering. According to public reports, Nolan was last seen on the island that afternoon, but he did not return with the group. His body was later found near the island on July 6th by a National Park Service ranger. The official cause and manner of death remained undetermined while the investigation and toxicology testing continued. That is why the interview received so much attention. People were not only listening to the words, they were listening for the missing piece in the story. They wanted to understand what happened between the moment Nolan was last seen and the moment help found him.
Step by step in this video.
Take a look at this photo before we go to the Cajun Navy. Look at this. Check out what you're seeing. Look at all the boats surrounding where Nolan was. Leave up the photo out to Caitlin Becker, senior national correspondent, New York Post, star of New York Postcast, their new podcast. Caitlin, what are we seeing?
One of the people interviewed was Warren Hudson, described as one of Nolan's close friends. Warren said that Nolan was not simply a friend to him. He described him as a brother. He spoke about knowing Nolan through school and staying connected with him over the years.
Nolan was not just a best friend of me, but he was a brother. I grew up through elementary, middle school, high school, and even our freshman year of college. We talked on the phone all the time. We were really close friends.
Those words touched many viewers because they sounded personal and emotional. They reminded people that Nolan was not a headline or a mystery. He was someone's son, someone's friend, and someone who had dreams of his own. In my opinion, this was the part of the interview that felt the most human, when a person loses someone close.
When I looked at his body language there, and also to his statements, as I shared with you off screen, is that I actually ran every statement that he made, even through Deceptio AI.
Memories often come out in simple words. You do not always need a dramatic speech to show love. Sometimes saying, "He was like a brother to me," carries more weight than a long explanation. But the mood changed when the conversation turned toward Nolan's phone. The interviewer asked whether anyone had touched the phone, gone through it, or deleted anything. Warren strongly denied having knowledge of any deletion. He said that no one had a reason to access the phone, and that, as far as he knew, nobody had the password.
Is there any chance or any knowledge that you have that anybody deleted stuff from his phone?
Absolutely not. Like I said, there was no reason for us to get on Nolan's phone. No one touched Nolan's phone, but nothing. If none of us had touched Nolan's phone, then there's no reason for anything to be deleted. No one even was in contact with his phone until it was moved from the boat to the truck. And none of us have access to Nolan's password to get on his phone and delete anything. Absolutely not. And we have no reason to delete anything.
That answer became one of the moments viewers discussed most intensely. Some viewers believed Warren sounded certain and sincere. Others focused on his posture, tone, and the way he repeated certain words. A body language commentator later offered an interpretation of the interview and suggested that one statement about Nolan's phone appeared less clear than the others. However, this kind of interpretation is not proof that someone lied, harmed Nolan, or committed a crime. Body language can be affected by fear, grief, pressure, confusion, or simply the stress of being questioned in public. This point is extremely important. A nervous person is not automatically guilty. A person who looks away is not automatically hiding something. Even scientific tests such as polygraphs can produce incorrect results, which is why the public should not treat an interview analysis as a final answer. The interview also raised questions because the public record still had important gaps. Reports said the boat experienced mechanical problems, including an issue involving the bilge pump, and the group eventually left the island. Warren reportedly said he last saw Nolan around the afternoon before the group departed. Nolan's mother was later contacted, and a missing person report was filed. Search teams, including local authorities, the Department of Marine Resources, the Gulf Islands National Seashore, and U.S. Coast Guard became involved. Horn Island is not an ordinary neighborhood where someone can quickly walk for help. The National Park Service describes as an undeveloped island accessible by private boat, with no regular facilities for visitors. That setting matters because distance, darkness, weather, water conditions, communication problems, and limited access can all make an emergency more difficult to understand. At the same time, the family has asked for a thorough and transparent investigation. Authorities have requested photographs, videos, and information about possible arguments, disturbances, or unusual activity on the island. Public reporting has also indicated that officials have not announced evidence proving foul play. The investigation remains active, and the final official findings are more important than online theories. That is where this story becomes painful. The public wants a clear villain, a clear explanation, and a moment that explains everything. Real investigations rarely move that quickly. They depend on phone records, witness statements, forensic testing, photographs, timelines, medical evidence, and information that may not be released immediately. The interview became powerful not because it solved a mystery, but because it showed how much remains unknown. Warren's words may help investigators understand Nolan's relationships and final movements, but they cannot answer every question by themselves. The same is true of body language, online discussions, and emotional reactions. My personal view is simple. People should keep asking questions, but they should also protect the truth from rumors. Nolan's family deserves answers, not internet punishment based on a facial expression or a sentence taken out of context. The goal should not be to create a dramatic story at any cost. The goal should be to understand what happened and allow the evidence to speak. And this brings us to the next question, the question that changed the entire direction of the story. If Warren was truly Nolan's close friend, why did the interview leave so many people feeling that one part of the story had not yet been fully explained? The question that changed everything. In the last section, we heard Warren Hudson describe Nolan Wells as more than a friend. He called him a brother. Those words made the interview feel personal and emotional. But then the conversation moved in a different direction, and one simple question changed the way many people heard everything that came after it. The question was, why is it that Nolan's mother does not know you all? It was not asked with a loud voice. It was not a dramatic accusation. But it reached straight into the heart of the story. If Warren had known Nolan for so many years, as he explained, why did Nolan's mother appear not to recognize him or the group of friends around her son? That question does not prove that anyone did something wrong. It does not prove that Warren was dishonest, but it created a contrast that viewers could not ignore. On one side, Warren described a friendship that lasted through elementary school, middle school, high school, and even college. On the other side, the family's apparent lack of familiarity raised a painful question. How close were these friendships in real life? Warren responded by saying that he had known Nolan for a long time. He explained that he and Nolan had grown up together and stayed in contact. He appeared to believe that the length of their friendship should answer the question by itself. But for many people watching, the answer did not bring peace. It created a new layer of uncertainty. This is why interviews can be so powerful. Sometimes the most important moment is not a confession or a dramatic statement. Sometimes it is a small difference between two parts of the story. One sentence says, "We were like brothers." Another detail makes viewers wonder whether the family saw the relationship in the same way. In my opinion, this is where we must slow down. Grief can make every unanswered detail feel enormous. Nolan's mother was facing the disappearance and death of her son. She may not have known every person Nolan spent time with, even if he knew them for years. Many families do not know all their adult children's friends. That fact alone should not be treated as evidence of guilt. At the same time, the family's questions deserve respect. Nolan was only 18 years old. His loved ones were trying to reconstruct his final hours from different accounts, phone information, photographs, and witness statements. Public reports have said that several details about the July 4th trip remained unclear, including the timeline of Nolan's last known movements and what happened after the group left the island. Then came another question that attracted even more attention. Did anyone touch Nolan's phone, go through it, or delete anything? Warren's answer was strong words. He said there was no reason for anyone to access Nolan's phone. He also said that, as far as he knew, nobody had the password, and that the phone was not handled until it was moved from the boat to a vehicle. The body language analysis discussed later focus on this part of the answer. The commentator pointed to Warren's tense posture, repeated wording, stronger tone, and the way he shook his head while denying that anyone touched the phone. The analysis suggested that one statement appeared less truthful than others, but viewers must understand the difference between an interpretation and evidence. Body language analysis cannot determine what happened to Nolan. A tense hand, an elevated voice, or repeated words can come from fear, sadness, confusion, pressure, or a knowledge that millions of people are watching. Even the analyst's own discussion reportedly acknowledged that such an assessment is not accepted as proof in court. The commentary also stated that the result did not mean Warren had harmed Nolan or deleted anything. That warning matters. A person can give an imperfect answer without being responsible for a tragedy. People often repeat themselves when they feel misunderstood. They may use more forceful words because they are afraid that silence will be interpreted as guilt. The most painful part of the interview is that every answer seemed to lead to another question. Why did Nolan stay behind? Who was with him? When did the group realize he was missing? What happened to his phone? Why did different people describe the timeline in different ways? Public reporting has also mentioned a young woman who was reportedly with Nolan on the island. Some reports identified her as Katie McCormick, but her family disputed parts of the account, and authorities had not publicly named her as a suspect. False images, online rumors, and unsupported claims also spread during investigation, making it even more important to separate confirmed facts from speculation. That detail connects directly to the next section. For a while, the public heard about a girl who may have been near Nolan before the group left. But who was she? Was she truly the reason Nolan stayed behind? Or was that description too simple for a situation that may have been far more complicated? This is the moment when a missing person story became a story about conflicting memories. The interview did not answer everything. Instead, it showed how one question can expose the distance between what people say, what families remember, and what investigators still need to verify. My honest opinion is that Nolan's family does not need a perfect television moment. They need a careful investigation, reliable evidence, and truthful answers. The internet may demand immediate conclusion, but a life should never be judged by rumors or a short video clip. And now, the question leads us to a detail almost everyone missed. Who was the girl Nolan was reportedly with? And what does her side of the story add to Nolan's final timeline? But the words were not the only thing people noticed. Does it match the timeline? In the last section, one question opened the door to even more questions. Who was the young woman Nolan Wells was reportedly speaking with before his friends left the island? Now, the most important issue is not only what people remember, it is whether those memories fit the known timeline. A timeline is more than a list of times. It is a structure that helps investigators understand what happened, what can be confirmed, and what still needs to be checked. In Nolan's case, the timeline matters because a few hours appear to contain the most important unanswered details of the entire story. According to public reports, Nolan and his friends traveled by boat to Horn Island on July 4th, 2026, to celebrate the holiday. Horn Island is a remote location with no regular public facilities, and visitors generally reach it by private boat. That means the group's movements, boat records, emergency calls, videos, and phone information may be especially important when trying to understand what happened. The group reportedly arrived on the island late in the morning. Later that day, Nolan was seen at the gathering with friends and other people. At some point, he reportedly spoke with a young woman. Some accounts said Nolan wanted to remain on the island with her, while other accounts suggested that he planned to return to the boat. This is where the timeline becomes difficult. The friend's account, as reported by several outlets, was that Nolan chose to stay behind after meeting the young woman. They said the group left the island because of problems with the boat, including water entering the vessel. A later emergency call reported took place around 4 p.m., with a person on the boat asking for help. The boat then left the island and returned toward the mainland. That part may fit with the idea that the group had a reason to leave quickly if the boat was not safe. The friends may have believed they had to return. But the most important question remains, did Nolan knowingly choose to stay, or did he believe he would be able to leave with them? The young woman's report account created another point of tension. According to public reporting, she told Nolan's mother that Nolan had planned to return to the boat. That version does not completely match the account attributed to Nolan's friends, who said he wanted to remain on the island. A difference like this does not automatically mean that someone is lying. People can remember the same conversation in different ways. Nolan may have changed his mind. He may have believed there was still time to return. The group may have misunderstood his words. The young woman may have heard one part of the conversation, while the friends heard another. But timing matters because the island was not a place where Nolan could easily find another ride home. If he stayed behind, he may have been separated from his phone, transportation, or the people who knew where he was. If he believed the boat was coming back, he may not have understood how serious the situation would become. Public reports indicate that Nolan was last seen during the afternoon. The boat later left the island, and his family did not immediately know that he had been left behind. That night, a friend reportedly contacted Nolan's mother, and the family began trying to understand where he was. Nolan was formally reported missing after he failed to return. The next major point is a delay between Nolan's disappearance and the search response. Reports have described contact with emergency agencies on the night of July 4th, while assistance from the Coast Guard was requested by local authorities the following day. These different times have caused confusion online, but they may reflect different actions by different people and agencies rather than one single moment. This is why careful wording is important. Saying nobody called for help until the next day may be incomplete. Saying the entire search began immediately may also be inaccurate. The public record contains several contact points, and investigators must determine who knew what and when they knew it. A later search located Nolan's body near Horn Island on July 6th. The official cause and manner of death were not publicly released at the time of the reports. An independent autopsy was described as undetermined. Authorities did not announce public evidence proving that another person caused Nolan's death. That fact should remain at the center of the discussion. A confusing timeline is not the same as proof of foul play. An unanswered question is not an accusation. The friend's statements, the young woman's account, phone records, GPS data, photographs, emergency audio, and medical findings must be examined together. A working report released by the United Cajun Navy also warned that its timeline was not complete and that some information still required verification. It reportedly said that no narrative claiming certainty about Nolan's movements could be supported until several major points were resolved. In my opinion, that is the most honest way to look at this case. The story may feel clear when told in a short video, but real life is often full of missing minutes, misunderstood words, and memories shaped by fear. No one's family deserves answers, but those answers must come from evidence that can be tested, not from a dramatic theory that spreads quickly online. The question is not simply whether Warren Hudson sounded nervous. The question is whether his account matches the boat's movements, the emergency call, the young woman's statement, the timing of the missing person report, and the evidence recovered from the island. If the timeline matches, it may explain why the friends believe Nolan had stayed behind by choice. If it does not match, investigators may need to look more closely at what happened during the gap between Nolan's last confirmed sighting and the boat's departure. And that brings us to the next turning point. Why do so many people believe Warren revealed more than he intended? Not through one clear confession, but through the small details surrounding his answers. Why people believe he revealed more than intended. By this point, the interview was no longer being watched as a simple conversation between a friend and a commentator. People were watching every pause, every repeated sentence, and every detail about Nolan Wells' final hours. The interview became controversial because viewers felt that Warren Hudson may have shared more information than he planned to share. But there's an important difference between revealing a detail and revealing guilt. Warren's statements may have created new questions, but they do not prove that he harmed Nolan, deleted anything, or knew the full truth about what happened. The first detail that caught public attention was Warren's explanation of Nolan's relationship with a young woman on Horn Island. Warren said Nolan decided to stay behind and continue speaking with her. He also suggested that the young woman could confirm that Nolan had made that choice. That sentence changed the direction of the story. Before that interview, many people understood only that Nolan had disappeared after July 4th boat trip. Afterward, the public began focusing on one specific question. Did Nolan choose to stay, or did he believe he was going back to the boat? According to public reports, the young woman later gave an account that did not fully match the version attributed to Nolan's friends. She reportedly said Nolan told her he was going back to join the others. The friends' account was different. They said Nolan told them he wanted to remain on the island with her. News reports described this as one of the central contradictions in the case. This does not automatically mean that one side deliberately lied. Noah may have changed his mind. He may have misunderstood the plan. The young woman may have heard one part of the conversation, while the friends heard another. But because Nolan was last seen around the same period, the difference became extremely important. The second detail involved Nolan's phone. Warren said Nolan left his phone on the boat, explaining that several people had done the same because they expected to be in the water. He also said that nobody had a reason to look through Nolan's phone, that nobody knew the password, and that he did not see anyone delete information. Later, he described giving the phone to the mother of another friend after the group returned. To some viewers, this sounded like a normal explanation. To others, it sounded over-explained. War repeated that no one touched the phone and that there was no reason to delete anything. The more firmly he denied the possibility, the more some people wonder why the phone had become such a central subject. That is how online theories grow. A person repeats a denial, and viewers begin to ask why the denial was repeated. A person sounds tense, and viewers begin to treat nervousness as a hidden message. A phrase is taken out a longer answer, and the internet builds a story around it. The body language commentator discussed Warren's posture, hand position, head movement, and vocal tone. The commentator suggested that one statement appeared less truthful than another. However, the analysis did not prove that Warren committed a crime. It was an interpretation behavior during a stressful interview, not physical evidence, a verified phone record, or a court finding. Even the people discussing the analysis admitted that body language opinions are not a substitute for proof. A nervous person may be grieving. A person may become tense because the public already suspects them. Someone may repeat a sentence because they are trying to make sure their answer is understood. My personal opinion is that this is where the public must show patience. Nolan's death is heartbreaking, and the family deserves a complete investigation. But treating every movement as a secret confession can harm innocent people and distract from the evidence that truly matters. The internet also made the situation more difficult. False photographs, edited videos, AI-generated material, and unsupported claims began spreading online. Some posts connected people to one another without reliable proof. Journalists later warned that several popular claims about the case were either misleading or impossible to confirm. That warning should not be ignored. When a case receives national attention, people may share information because they want to help. But a rumor repeated thousands of times can begin to look like a fact, even when nobody has verified it. The same problem appeared in discussions about the young woman. She was publicly identified in some reports as Katie McCormick. But that identification had not been publicly confirmed by police authorities at the time of those reports. She was described as a witness, not as a person charged with a crime. This matters because online attention can become unfair and frightening. A witness may know something important without being responsible for what happened. A friend may give an incomplete answer without intentionally hiding the truth. A family may remember a person differently from the people who spend time with him. The United Cajun Navy's later report also urged caution. It stated that its review did not provide a complete chronology and that several important points remained unresolved. The report warned that any story claiming certainty about Nolan's movements during the missing period went beyond what the available evidence could support. That may be the clearest explanation for why the interview became so controversial. It did not give the public a final answer. Instead, it placed several unanswered details of the same conversation. The girl on the island, the decision to leave, the boat problem, the phone, and the moment Nolan was last seen. People believe Warren revealed more than intended because his answers connected those details. But connecting details is not the same as proving a theory. In the end, the interview did not establish what happened to Nolan. It showed only that different people remembered important moments in different ways. The truth must come from records, phone data, witness accounts, medical findings, and official investigative work, not from a viral clip alone. And that leads us to the biggest question of all. If the timeline, the phone story, and the witness accounts still do not fully match, what are the bigger questions investigators must answer before anyone can understand Nolan's final hours? The bigger questions. The interview changed the public conversation, but it did not solve the mystery of Nolan Wells' final hours. Instead, it brought several separate details into one place. The friendship, the phone, the young woman on Horn Island, the boat trouble, and the different memories of what Nolan planned to do next. That is why the interview became so emotional for many viewers. Nolan's family is not asking for a dramatic television moment. They are asking for the truth about their son. Every new statement gives them hope that someone may finally explain what happened, but every contradiction can also bring fresh pain. The first bigger question is simple. Did Nolan choose to stay on Horn Island, or did he believe he was still going to leave? Some accounts attributed to Nolan's friends say he decided to remain on the island with a young woman, later identified in reports as Katie McCormick. Other reports say Katie's side of the story did not match that version. She reportedly indicated that Nolan expected to return to the boat, while the friend's account suggested that he had chosen to stay. That difference is important because Nolan was on a remote island. If he believed transportation was still available, he may have had no reason to panic. If he understood that the boat was leaving permanently, then his decision to stay would look very different. The second question concerns the boat. Reports said the boat experienced problems and that the people on board needed to return. This may explain why the group left when they did. But it still leaves an uncomfortable question. What did the people on the boat believe Nolan understood before they departed? Did everyone clearly know that Nolan was staying? Did someone expect another boat to pick him up? Did Nolan have a working phone? Did the group know exactly where he would sleep or how he would return? These questions are not accusations. They are the basic details needed to understand whether the separation was a planned decision or a serious misunderstanding. The third question is about Nolan's phone. Warren Hudson said that nobody touched the phone, searched it, or deleted anything. He explained that the phone remained on the boat and that the people around him did not have Nolan's password. Some public statements, however, led the family and others to question whether messages or information have been removed. Reports have described the phone as one of the important points of disagreement in the case. A phone can help establish a timeline, but only if investigators can verify its condition, access history, location data, messages, and account activity. A body language expert opinion about how Warren answered questions cannot replace a digital forensic examination. A person may appear tense because a topic is painful, while a calm person may still give an incorrect answer. This is why investigators rely on evidence rather than interviews alone. They compare statements with GPS information, emergency calls, photographs, videos, boat movement, weather, tide conditions, phone records, and medical findings. They look for details that witnesses could not easily change, such as the time a call was placed or the location of a device. They also compare separate witnesses who may not have spoken to one another. The fourth question is what happened during the missing period. Nolan was reportedly last seen on July 4th, and his body was found near Horn Island on July 6th. The distance between those 2 points in time is where the most important answers may be hidden. Authorities and independent investigators have continued examining the circumstances of his disappearance, including the water, the island, the boat, and emergency response. The public has heard many theories about what may have happened. Some people believe Nolan drowned accidentally. Others believe the available information deserves a deeper investigation, At the time of public reporting, local authorities had not announced evidence proving that another person caused his death, while an independent autopsy reportedly listed the cause of manner death as undetermined. That means the honest answer is still. Many important facts remain unresolved. The fifth question is whether the interview changed public perception. Before the interview, some people saw the case mainly as a tragic accident. Afterward, viewers focused more closely on Warren's words and behavior. The interview caused some people to believe that the friend's account contained hidden problems. Others believed the interview showed a young man trying to defend himself while facing intense public suspicion. Both reactions are understandable, but public perception is not the same as proof. A person can sound uncomfortable without being responsible for a death. A family can have real concerns without every suspicion being correct. A witness can remember an event honestly and still be mistaken about part of it. The most dangerous part of a case like this is how quickly one sentence can become a complete story online. Warren's statement about Nolan staying with a girl became a major theory. The phone station became another. Then photographs, edited videos, and false claims began spreading, making it harder to separate what was verified from what was created for attention. My honest opinion is that Nolan's life should not be reduced to the most dramatic version of his final day. He was a young man with a family, friends, hopes, and a future. The search for answers should protect his memory instead of turning every unknown detail into a public accusation. The bigger questions are not only about Warren. They are about the entire timeline. What did Nolan know before the boat left? Who last saw him clearly? What did the young woman actually observe? What happened to the phone? When did the search begin? What do the water conditions show? And what will the official investigation ultimately confirm? Until those questions are answered, no interview should be treated as the final piece of the story. But one detail may bring us closer than any body language analysis. The last confirmed moments involving Nolan, the people near him, and the evidence left behind after the boat departed. And that leads directly to the final piece. The final piece, after all the questions, all the interviews, and all the theories, the final piece may not be a dramatic statement at all. It may be the quiet space between what people said happened and what the records can actually confirm. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old student athlete who went to Horn Island with friends for a 4th of July gathering. The boat reportedly left the mainland at about 9:56 in the morning and arrived at Horn Island around 11:14. Later that afternoon, the boat left the island without Nolan. Publicly reported GPS information placed that departure at approximately 4:31 p.m. Those times are important because they give investigators a fixed structure. They can compare the boat's movement with phone activity, emergency calls, photographs, video, witness memories, and the moment Nolan was last seen. One reported account placed Nolan's last known sighting around 3 p.m. If that is correct, there was a period of roughly 90 minutes between the last confirmed sighting and the boat's departure. That period may explain everything, or may create the most important question in the case. What happened during those minutes? Did Nolan remain with the young woman? Did he walk toward another part of the island? Did he believe the boat would return? Did anyone speak with him after the last reported sighting? Was his phone still on the boat? Did the people leaving the island know that he would not be coming with them? At this time, the public does not have a complete answer to those questions. This is the overlooked moment that people continue to discuss. Not only the words Warren Hudson used in the interview, but the time surrounding them. His statement about Nolan staying behind became important because it was connected to a specific part of the timeline. If Nolan had clearly chosen to remain, that could support the friend's explanation. If Nolan believed he was returning to the boat, then the situation may have been a painful misunderstanding. The difference between those two possibilities is enormous, but the interview itself cannot decide which version is true. Warren may have remembered Nolan's words honestly. He may have misunderstood Nolan's intention. The young woman may have understood the conversation differently. Even the people who were physically present may not have seen the same moments or heard the same words. That is why investigators must separate confirmed facts from assumptions. A confirmed fact is that Nolan went to Horn Island and did not return with a group. A confirmed fact is that the boat left the island that afternoon. A confirmed fact is that Nolan's body was found near the island on July 6th. Authorities and public reports have also said that the investigation remained active, while the cause and manner of death were not immediately established. An assumption is that Nolan definitely wanted to stay. Another assumption is that someone definitely knew he was in danger. It is also an assumption that a nervous answer proves dishonesty, or that a phone dispute proves that information was deleted. Those assumptions may be discussed, but they should not be presented as established truth. The interview continues to receive attention because viewers believe one answer sounded different from the others. Warren described Nolan as a brother and spoke with emotion about their long friendship. When the conversation turned to Nolan's phone, his tone became stronger and his explanation became more detailed. A body language commentator interpreted those changes as an area needing further examination, but even that analysis came with limits. The commentator did not prove that Warren harmed Nolan or removed anything from a phone. Body language opinions are not a replacement for digital evidence, forensic testing, or sworn testimony. A person under pressure may repeat a denial because they are frightened, grieving, or worried that people will misunderstand them. In my opinion, this is the most important lesson for an entire interview. A powerful moment is not always a proven fact. Sometimes people see the same answer in completely different ways. One viewer hears fear, another hears honesty, a third hears confusion. The video remains the same, but the interpretation changes. That is how one sentence can fuel widespread speculation. Online users began creating theories around a girl on the island, the phone, the boat, and the reported timeline. Some shared helpful information, but others posted false photographs, edited videos, and claims that had not been verified. Reporting later warned that misinformation was spreading and that certain online stories were not supported by reliable evidence. The next developments that matter are not another dramatic reaction video. They are the records that can test the story. Official findings from a medical examiner, verified phone and location data, the full emergency call timeline, statements from all people who saw Nolan that afternoon, boat and GPS records, photographs and videos from the island, any evidence that clarifies what happened during the missing period. The public should also watch for official statements from investigators and prosecutors, not only comments from people online. A grand jury review, if held, does not automatically mean that someone is guilty. It means officials are presenting information for further legal consideration. The final piece may eventually come from one small detail, a message, a timestamp, a photograph, a location record, or a witness who remembers something differently after seeing the timeline. It may confirm the friend's account, or it may show that an important part of the story was misunderstood. What matters most is that Nolan's family receives answers based on evidence. They deserve clarity, but they also deserve a process careful enough to protect the truth. Sometimes the biggest clue is not something hidden. It can be a single answer that people interpret in very different ways. Whether that moment ultimately matters will depend on the evidence that has not yet emerged. And until that evidence speaks, the most honest ending is not a final accusation. It is a promise to keep looking carefully, to avoid harming innocent people with rumors, and to remember that behind every unanswered question was a real young man whose family is still waiting to know what happened.